Award races in the NBA are always a fun topic to talk about, and especially in the 2021 and 22 season, the Rookie of the Year race has been pretty interesting. Overall, I think the 2021 draft class has definitely shown that they're a pretty strong draft class so far, and for the vast majority of the year, the race for the Rookie of the Year has been between Scottie Barnes of the Raptors and Evan Mobley of the Cavs. And while probably the majority of you guys would still take Evan Mobley as the Rookie of the Year, I'm going to convince you today why I think Scottie Barnes deserves to win the award this year. I know this might seem biased, as for those of you who watch the channel, I am a Raptors fan and I'm literally sitting behind the microphone with a Scottie Barnes jersey on right now, but I am going to convince you guys today why Scottie deserves to win the Rookie of the Year. And before we get into this is no disrespect to Evan Mobley at all. He's an incredible player. I love watching him play, and it's definitely a very close race. I'm not trying to convince you that guys that Scottie's like leagues better than Mobley. It's extremely close, but I do think Scottie deserves the award, and I'm going to go through a few reasons why I think that's the case in today's video. With that being said, let's get into the analysis. We'll start off by talking about these players' scoring, and then moving on to the playmaking aspect, and then defense. So when we start with scoring, Scottie and Mobley are pretty much equal, so far this year, in terms of their scoring ability. I would maybe give a slight edge to Scottie. And then one of the main themes you're going to see really throughout all of today's video is how a lot of Scottie Barnes' impact doesn't really show up on the stat sheet. And I think that's a big reason why I have him over Mobley as well. When we focus specifically in on scoring, both of these guys are putting up about 15 points per game so far this season. They both do a really good job of shooting those little floaters inside of the paint, getting to the rim, getting easy baskets there, doing a great job of playing in the post, and both of them are overall great interior scorers. What I like about Scottie's game, though, is how he can definitely create his own shot off the dribble a little bit more than Mobley. And Scottie also has developed at least a little bit of a jump shot. Overall, I would classify him as a pretty good mid-range scorer. He can shoot, like I said, that little floater inside the paint, but also kind of stretch that out to about 10 to 15 feet and shoot that little soft touch mid-range shot, which has provided definitely some good things for the Raptors. And then Scottie definitely has a better three-point shot as well. And overall, him just adding a little bit more of a jump shot and being a better free throw shooter as well than Mobley provides a lot of things. They can't just leave Scottie wide open from three like opposing defenses would do to Evan Mobley, for example, and this has a pretty big effect on teams' offenses, especially in today's NBA. And when we look at some specific stats here, like I said, these guys are very equal in scoring. They're pretty much equal in points per game, field goal percentage, and true shooting, but Scottie is about 5 to 6 percentage points higher in both 3-point percentage and free throw percentage. Like I said, neither of these guys are really good shooters at all yet at this point in their NBA careers. I hope both of them kind of develop into better shooters, which would make them even more kind of lethal threats as scorers. But like I said, Scottie is really less of a bad shooter than Mobley, and while that doesn't seem like a huge difference here, it does provide a lot of things at the court, because teams kind of have to, like I said, respect Scottie Barnes' three-point shot, whereas Mobley really hasn't developed one at all yet, and he definitely has to improve there a lot. So overall, when we just focus in on the scoring aspect to start here, like I said, they're very, very equal, but with the stats combined with the eye test, I would give a slight edge here to Scottie Barnes. And I think a lot of you kind of need to just pay a little bit more attention to these little details to see that Mobley you can't really say that Mobley's a better scorer than Scottie Barnes, and when you focus in on that aspect of the game, it's definitely very close, but a slight edge goes to Scottie for sure. So the next aspect I want to talk about here is playmaking, and this is where I think there's actually definitely a little bit more of a gap here between Scottie and Mobley, because Scottie Barnes is one of those players who can really play that point forward type of position and be almost like a secondary point guard for this team. He can run the point position when Fred VanVleet is out, especially because the Raptors don't have good depth at the point guard position. Scottie does a really good job of stepping into that role when Fred is out, and Scottie also does things like he's able to lead the break in transition. He has very good court vision, and he does a good job of finding open teammates at the right time, passing from the post, and overall just being a very good playmaker. And this is really one of those things where the stats don't tell the full story for Scottie. Mobley is also, I would say, a decent playmaker for his position. He can makes some good passes from the post, but he definitely does not have that same impact that Scottie does, at least in my opinion. And again, this is something that you really have to actually watch games and use your eyes to see the impact that Scottie Barnes has on an offense like the Raptors. He's only averaging 3.5 assists compared to Mobley's 2.5 assists, and both of them are averaging about 2 turnovers per game. But Scottie also gets a fair amount of secondary assists. He can start sequences of good ball movement for the team by making very difficult passes, making no-look passes, and like I said, especially doing things like handling the ball in transition, throwing lobs, and just overall being a very good playmaker for his position. And I mentioned as well how he can kind of run that point guard position. A lot of the time, Scottie will either start the second or fourth quarter, which a lot of starters don't do, but he can kind of run that bench unit, be the main leader of that unit, and he does a really good job of being a playmaker here as well. Really just making the right passes at the right times, being a good off-ball player, a good cutter as well. And I just think that overall, Scottie Barnes' playmaking compared to Mobley's is a pretty big gap here, and something that people that are focusing on this debate have to pay a little bit more attention to. When Fred VanVleet is out of the lineup for the Raptors this season, Scottie Barnes has been averaging 5.5 assists per game, and he's had 14 games this season where he's had either 6 or more assists, and he even had one game as well recently where he actually did have 10 assists and put up a double-double with assists. Was very close to getting the first triple-double of his career there. But overall, I think it's important to notice that because the Raptors have a guy like Fred VanVleet a lot of the time, and especially Pascal Siakam, who's a very good playmaking kind of point forward type of guy as well, Scottie doesn't have to play that role of being a point forward a lot of the time, but when he does, he definitely takes it on very well, especially those times where he's, like I said, running that kind of second unit at the start of second and fourth quarters. And I think it's important to really watch games and analyze how Scottie Barnes has this amazing playmaking aspect to his game, and Evan Mobley hasn't really added a playmaking aspect like that yet to his game, and I think there's some big separation here that people have to pay a little bit more attention to for sure. Now let's move on to talking about defense, and this is probably the most interesting part of the debate because this is where both players are really the most elite, and this is probably the best aspect of their overall game. But to be honest, I think that Evan Mobley has become a little bit just a slightly overrated defender. I mean, some people are already putting this guy in like the top 10 or top 15 defenders in the league, and I think that's way too high for him as of right now. Not taking anything away from him, I mean, he is definitely a great defender. He's averaging almost 2 blocks per game. His length does a lot of things defensively for his team, and overall he's a great rim protector, a pretty good wing defender, and a decent perimeter defender for his size as well. But something I've noticed about Mobley is when you match him up against someone who's a lot bigger than stronger than him, he has a very tough time. And obviously that's gonna come when you have a guy who has the kind of the physical frame of Mobley, and I just think he needs to get a little bit stronger, and like as a post defender, which is very important for the position of a power forward / center. It's definitely very important to be a good post defender. I think Mobley can just improve here. He's not a bad post defender at all. I just think that's definitely not a good aspect to his game. It's not good or bad, but for example, Scottie Barnes, I think he's definitely a much better post defender, and there's really not a lot that Mobley can do defensively that Scottie can do defensively. Mobley's definitely a little bit of a better rim protector, but Scottie is still definitely a very good interior defender and rim protector, a slightly better post defender, probably an overall better perimeter defender. Scottie's matched up with some of the league's best throughout this entire year and guarded them one-on-one, whether it's on the perimeter or down low. And Scottie can really truly defend 1 through 5, which is a very rare talent in the NBA. Really always has been. For a player to truly be able to actually defend 1 through 5 is very difficult, and that's something that I think Scottie's better at than Mobley as well. I mean, overall interior defense still is the most important part of defense, and Mobley probably is the better overall defender just by a little bit, but it's definitely not as big a gap as a lot of you might think. I would classify Scottie Barnes right now, from what I've seen this season, as a top 30 defender in the NBA. I don't think you guys realize just how good this guy's defense is, and really how elite of an overall defender he is, and even compared to Mobley, he is still giving him a run for his money. As defenders, there's definitely a close debate, and Mobley probably is the better defender. but it's definitely, my point here is that it's a lot closer than a lot of you guys probably think. When we take a quick look at rebounding, both of these guys do a great job of boxing out, getting on the glass, grabbing those rebounds, and they're both very athletic. Mobley's averaging just over 8 rebounds per game, and Scottie's averaging just under 8 rebounds per game. Both of them take advantage of the chances that they get to rebound the ball, and it's pretty equal here. Mobley's probably better by a little bit. Rebounding isn't exactly the most important aspect to the game compared to the other three I've discussed, so just a quick look at that. Mobley probably takes it by just a little bit, but again, pretty close there. And overall, this is just such a close debate, and it's so hard to decide. One other thing that I want to throw in here as well is when it comes to award races, a lot of the time team success is thrown into the mix here, and I think earlier in the year when the Cavs were flirting with being a top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference and the Raptors were more fighting as like a 8 to 10 seed, that was definitely an argument that was used for Mobley against Scottie Barnes, is what they've been able to, how they've been able to impact team success. But as of right now, of course, that isn't really a valid argument for either side anymore, as the Raptors are actually 1 game ahead of the Cavaliers now. So I would just wanted to point that out as well. You can't really use that as an argument anymore for sure. So like I said, overall, this is just such a close debate. And again, nothing against Evan Mobley. He's a great player. I love watching him play, but I've got to go with Scottie here. Both of these guys are very, very similar players. They have very similar play styles on both the offensive and defensive side of the floors. But Scottie's impact and what he's able to do with kind of at that point forward position and be a little bit more of a versatile offensive player, I think that makes kind of a gap between them when we talk about offense. And then when it comes to the defensive side of the floor, and like I said, it's just a lot closer than you guys think. And I think Scottie Barnes is really turning into one of the more underrated overall defenders in the NBA. He can defend 1 through 5, a great perimeter defender. And overall, I think the offensive gap and how much better of an offensive player Scottie is than Mobley slightly outweighs how much better of a defensive player Mobley is than Scottie. It's definitely a very close debate. Like I've said multiple times, these guys are both very good for rookies, had amazing rookie years this NBA season. They play very similar, but I'm going to have to give that slight edge to Scottie Barnes right now. And I think that Evan Mobley being considered the Rookie of the Year by the vast majority of the NBA community is definitely invalid. It has to be very closer than what a lot of the polls and experts are saying right now. And I think even a slight edge goes to Scottie, as I've explained throughout today's video. So there you have it. That's all I've got for you guys in today's video. Make sure you guys comment down below your thoughts. Who do you think's the Rookie of the Year? Is it Scottie Barnes or is it Evan Mobley? Thank you guys for watching today's video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you all next video.